Hello and welcome back to ZOMBcast, episode 4?
Episode whatever we want it to be.
I believe it's episode 4, because we had episode 0, then episode 1 was Dawn of the Dead, and then we did...
Resident? No,
Black Summer.
Yep, we did Black Summer.
Then Left for the Dead. Left for the Dead.
We did
Left for the Dead. And now we do Train to Busan. Train to Busan. This is South Korea, right? Yep, South Korea, 2016 South Korea movie. The buzz around this movie has been unrelenting. So much so that we put our preferences aside and we're like, you know what? I'm gonna read for an hour and a half and I'm gonna watch this movie. And
that wasn't my issue.
True. Anyways,
my issue was there was no positive imaging that I saw that intrigued my interest into this movie.
Okay, so
you said something, and then I'm like, okay, let's try it out.
And so we watched it, and it is probably as good as you've heard. So if you keep hearing the same thing, that Train to Busan is a great zombie movie, then we can attest to yes. And that's coming from somebody who hates reading. I don't like reading, and yet I still was able to thoroughly enjoy this movie. So just some background here once again. Train to Busan was a 2016 South Korea action horror movie directed by, I'm going to mess all these up and I apologize ahead of time. Young Sang-ho, starring Gong Yoo, Chung Yoo-mi, and Mai Dong-sok. Seok. Okay. The film mainly takes place on the train to...
Busan.
The zombie apocalypse suddenly breaks out. The film premiered at midnight screenings section of the 2016 Cannes Film Festival on the 13th of May. Or wait, no, it says on 13 May on 7 August. I don't know.
On the 7th of August. So there's a period after 13 May.
Oh, okay.
On 7 August, the film set a record as the first Korean film of 2016.
Oh, there's a period there. I apologize, everybody.
Over 10 million theater goers. Over 10 million theater goers to see this movie. The film serves as a reunion of Gong Yoo and, what is that, Jung Yoo-mi?
Jung Yoo-mi.
Jung Yoo-mi, who both starred in the 2011 film The Crucible, which, if you haven't seen that, it's actually a very good movie. A sequel, Peninsula, was released in South Korea on July 15th, 2020. So we recently got a sequel to Peninsula. I was just asking Nick about it prior to us recording. Is it on Prime? And we don't know.
I believe you can rent it. You know what I mean? So
if it's a rentable, I think this is one that I'm willing to pay the money to rent for a few days just to be able to watch it.
I mean, their renting is only like a couple dollars anyway, so...
Good. So we'll have to dive into that here in a little bit and kind of find out more about Peninsula. Let's find out more about the plot behind Train to Busan.
Well, first off, let's do our regularly scheduled rigmarole and kind of do the synopsis, not the synopsis, but our synopsis of what we thought about it. All right. So what did you think about the movie overall?
Hands down, absolutely loved it. This movie has taken place to probably my top favorite zombie movie, at least in the top 5 favorite zombie movies.
For sure, yeah.
There's a lot to this movie that made it super good. There's some things that I wish they had, but I think it all came down to funding. If you don't have the funding, you're not going to have it. So,
yeah.
But because of poor funding, that doesn't make a bad movie. Look at Night of the Living Dead. Look at George A. Romero's very first zombie film. Didn't have a lot of funding, but it was a really good zombie movie, right? So funding isn't a depiction of what makes a good zombie movie. What makes a good zombie movie is story, detail, and playthrough. And
characters.
Characters. And this movie had all of that lined up perfectly. And like Nick said, he's not a big fan of reading. I don't mind reading subtitles. I watch foreign movies quite a bit, actually. So it's something I'm kind of used to. But what I'm not used to is having it be so easily readable.
Yes.
And by that I mean the dialogue wasn't all smushed together, just like bam, 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 bam.
Yes, absolutely.
It was broken apart, and by it being kind of spaced the way it was with the tempo that it had, it played more like a song rather than a movie. It was very rhythmic. Honestly, it was a very rhythmic style of dialogue that just flowed through the threads of the movie so perfectly. And it made it to where you didn't miss anything.
True, yeah.
I didn't miss a piece of dialogue, and I didn't miss a piece of action because they didn't do this.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So
yeah, I can definitely attest. One of the reasons I don't like reading in my movies is I'm going to go back to the year 2005 or 2006. A new Jet Li movie was coming out. I like Jet Li. Jet Li's super awesome, right?
It's not Ip Man, was it?
No. That's not Jet Li. So, but a new one was coming out. I believe it was Hero, I want to say. Anyways, first off, I had no idea it was a foreign film. So I went in thinking, oh, I'm going to enjoy a nice Jet Li movie. I started to watch it. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to have to read a little bit, but then maybe there's going to be some English-speaking parts. But the problem is that it went so fast, kind of like what you were hinting at. It went so fast, it was very hard to understand what was going on. And so, like, I couldn't even stay for... This was back when I actually worked at the movie theater, so the tickets didn't actually cost me anything. So for me, there was no investment, quote-unquote, so it was like I was out of there. You know what I mean? And ever since then, I've had a bad taste for foreign films, and I only change that for very particular movies. This is one movie that I heard so much about that I'm like, I think I have to. And on top of that, we have a podcast about zombies, ZOMBcast. You might have heard of it.
Might have heard of it.
And I think we have to watch it. And I think another thing that turned me off anytime somebody would talk about it, it's like Train to Busan. And most of the marketing that I had been able to like dig up was just like, oh, it's snakes on a plane, but there's zombies on a train. You know, so it's like, I'm sick of these motherfucking zombies on this motherfucking train. And I was just like, it's going to take place on a train? That's going to be boring as hell. I could not have been further from wrong because they made it taking place on a train somehow so interesting.
Yeah.
And granted, they do eventually get off the train, you know, spoilers, but like they did make it so interesting, and we'll get into it once we get into the full story or whatever, but it was so surprising that a movie that took place on a train, something that is small enough where you couldn't really get past somebody unless you run into them or something. Like, you're making a whole movie about zombies that can sprint at you on a train? That's boring as hell.
These are World War Z zombies.
Yeah, that's a good point. World War Z zombies. These are 28 days later infected. That's the type of like zombies that we're getting here.
Yep.
So yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, I don't know if I would like this, and I'm so glad I gave it a chance.
And I agree with you. I agree. I didn't know how being on a train was going to affect the story because you think about the limitations of a train. It's a track.
Yeah.
You're going one direction.
Yep.
But somehow they managed to not only move the train forward in the movie, but they managed to move us forward with the train. And I know that's all like, oh, it's convoluted words and blah, blah, blah. I know what you're thinking, like some bull crap I just spoke, but in reality, it does. Somehow you feel like you're progressing with these people.
Yeah. And I think most of it is the world itself is really good. Don't get me wrong, but it was the characters. You know, you had
well they sold that.
Yes, how well they sold it. It's like, here's a dad who is estranged from his wife. He cares about you can tell he cares, but it's also just he has other stuff going on. He's just like, it's kind of a nuisance.
things.
And then you have this other guy who's about to have a baby, and to see his kind of difference of just like the value of human life, for instance.
The value of human life, but not only that, like kind of like how he views people and how he talks to them. If he found you to be a respectful person, he treated you with 100% dignity.
Right.
But even though he found you to be disrespectful, he would say like quips at you, but at the same time he was still polite.
True.
Even though he may not have liked you, he would make it known that he didn't like you, but he would also treat you with dignity. And I thought that was a very detailed, specific thing to his character that made his character so effing lovable.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like characters in general, like that's what kept this interesting, because a horror movie's job is to get us to care about people. And when we're in a zombie apocalypse where we have to survive, I have to want those people to survive. I have to want that greedy ass business guy to die. Yep. I have to want that, and they have to make me feel it without me knowing that I'm feeling it. And when a movie can do that, that's when you know it's a good movie.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Train to Busan did. Quick side note, Ip Man, I apologize about the Ip Man reference. I don't know why I thought that was Jet Li, but it's not Ip Man. My apologies. And I believe the movie you were talking about is Fearless. It came out in 2006. If it wasn't Fearless, it was Hero, but Hero came out in 2002. So it was one of those two movies. It could have been one of the other ones in between. But no, I agree with you. There's a lot of Jet Li movies that were just like too much dialogue going on at one time. You couldn't understand it. You couldn't get past it. Coming back out of that, back to Train to Busan, we were talking about the cast. So I want to talk about the cast a little bit more. I want to dive into the people specifically and what made their characters so good and so lovable. Okay. So we'll go. I'll start us off with the first one. I'll let you take the second one. The first one is Gong Yoo as Seok Woo. That's the character's name. A fund manager who is estranged from his daughter. Now, a fund manager, I'm presuming, is like an accountant.
Yes.
So I think he's like a high priority accountant who is estranged. Him and his daughter are not close. Mom lived with them. His mom lived with them. And even his mom, he was kind of estranged from his mom in a way too, where he just didn't, I feel like he just doesn't know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
You know? And you get a lot of that out of his backstory, even though there's only a little bit of backstory to the characters themselves. There's not a lot of backstory. You only get a little bit. But in that little bit, you kind of understand, like, okay, he's just driven to be a hardworking individual.
Right.
He's trying to make life better for his daughter. And if that means sacrificing his love, his wife, he was willing to do it. And he did that.
Yeah, he thinks a lot of things in numbers. You know, which obviously goes along with his job. And I feel like they portrayed that. And the best thing about all these characters moving forward, so I don't have to keep repeating myself, but the best thing about all these characters is that they portrayed that in their emotions, because obviously they were saying words that I couldn't understand. So their faces told me a story, and then I had to read the story itself. But like, that was a big thing for me. It's like, okay, he thinks in numbers. So it's not that he doesn't love his daughter. It's not that he didn't love his wife, for instance. It's just that risk, reward,
possibilities and probabilities.
Exactly.
You know, and that spoke a lot to who his character was and how his arc was throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
And to see his dynamic turnaround in the movie, because, you know, he's the main hero. Every main hero has a dynamic turnaround.
Should.
Or else they should, or else they wouldn't be the hero, right? Which is one thing that about Night of the Living Dead, they didn't really have a main hero.
Yeah.
There was no hero in Night of the Living Dead, which when you look at a zombie movie, should there be a hero? Should there not be a hero? I think that's all just kind of depends on the viewer, if you want a hero or if you don't. You know, you look at Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead had a few heroes, but I personally like zombie outcomes where there's no winning. Even at the end, they're still alive, but they're still fucking zombies. Like, to me, I like those endings better than anything else. And if you can give me a character turnaround within that story, Daryl Dixon, for example, complete turnaround story on The Walking Dead. When you give me those characters, I'm going to latch to them and I'm going to enjoy them. And that's what Gong Yoo had to go through. He went through a complete character arc turnaround. and you can really see it. And I think that his turnaround was brought on by his supporting cast member. Nick, if you want to take this one,
Yeah.
it's our boy. It's our boy.
Yeah, Mong Dong Seok.
Madong.
He played as Song He, the tough man. So he's the guy who's going to be a dad.
Yep.
And I think that was definitely done on purpose, because here you have this dad who might not really realize what he has in his daughter, and meanwhile you have this other dad, or this other expected dad, and he's so excited, he's so energetic or whatever, and it's like, like maybe Suk-woo used to be that guy, and then he let life get in the way, he let numbers take over his life, and so I feel like that definitely had part of it, or part of the character arc. And like you said, I feel like he latched onto him for maybe a couple of reasons. One, he was just a tough guy or whatever, but also because of just what he represented inside himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was how do you put this? He was soft, but tough about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
and that's hard to pull off. That's
it
really
is
hard. Well, let's say it's hard to pull off convincingly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And, but again, the way Madong Seok did it was just unparalleled. I don't think that there's anybody else in the film industry that I've ever seen who can do "I'm soft but I'm tough."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I mean, it was one of those ways. It was humble. It was just responsible. It was, I mean, you want to talk about the epitome of a good-hearted person. It was that character. He was just super kind-hearted, and he thought that he could give lessons through words in a way. Like, he didn't need to beat you up to teach you something.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
like, just by calling Seok Woo different names, like Numbers Man and
Jerkman,
and Rude Boy and stuff like that. By treating him as an inferior, I think kind of opened Seok Woo's eyes a little bit to who he is as a person. And I think that the tough guy liked him the whole time, but just wanted him to basically he was trying to get him to look into the mirror of ugly truth. That's what I saw. It was like, hey, dude, like, I bet you're a really good guy. Look what you're doing. And I think through that is how, one, we got such a, in my opinion, an amazing relationship between the two. Between the protagonist and his first companion. Because I would say that's his first companion, right?
Yeah.
That's the first companion, and then the second companion would be the baseball guy.
Yeah, right.
But the first companion is immediately somebody who is teaching the hero, hey, you're not a hero.
Yeah, right.
And I
you ain't tough shit.
No, it was. And I really, really loved that playthrough. I loved the dynamic and thought behind how that went. Even when the dad was talking about the homeless guy and his daughter goes, you shouldn't say that about people.
Right.
Like that was such an eye opener to like who he is as a person and how he sees people as numbers. Like you said, it's all about the number, and it's not about the right thing. And then coming out of that, you have Kim Suan as Suan, Seok-woo's young daughter, who wants to go to Busan to see her mother. She wants to see her mom. And she really does feel estranged from her dad because she doesn't quite see like her dad. She sees more like tough guy. She sees more like her mom. She sees compassion and love in people, and she doesn't want to be a cold numbers person. Her character's kind of tough to depict and describe just because she's more of a floater character.
Yeah.
She's that luggage that you're carrying around the whole episode, but you had to have a tie-in. That being said,
she's an emotional MacGuffin.
Yes, there you go. There you go. My only thing is, this is probably my only complaint about the movie. I know.
Gasp.
I could not stand her crying.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
was the one thing. I wish they could have chose a better crier for that, but
just dub over her
that,
crying.
outside of that little girl got me to cry at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
When they're walking through the tunnel and the song and that one
I
right
gotcha.
there hit me hard. So
hit me with your best shot.
When you look at it prospectively, yes, her crying was annoying, but Kim Soo-won as Soo-won, Suk-woo's young daughter, I still think that she did a fantastic job as a young actress, and I feel that she played her part to the key. I don't feel that she missed out on anything at all.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I'd say the last main characters, because a lot of the other ones were kind of side characters, but Jung Yoo-mi as Sung Ki-young, which is the tough guy's brave wife who is pregnant during the film. She is one of the mostly looks after Suan. So she kind of takes on that motherly, aspect or whatever. But those are kind of the main characters.
I want to talk about who I would call the villain of the movie.
Okay, yeah, no.
Yeah, and that would be, I say this is actually the last main character, Kim Yoo-sung as Yeon Suk, COO of Stallion Express.
That's true, yeah.
He's the main bad guy.
He's the antagonist. He's the human antagonist. Because anytime you have a survival, you have to have that outside force, but you also have to have internal conflict.
And we needed to hate somebody, and I feel that I hate him. I physically hate that person.
Yep, definitely.
And they did a good job at portraying why I needed to hate him. Throughout the whole movie, he was very much. I think it was a good eye opener to Seok-woo because he saw this COO of a business and how he counted everything as numbers, and Seok-woo was like, "Well, I don't want to be him.
Definitely,
I don't want to be like that." And I think that was kind of another, a mirror of ugly truth. It was another reflection of what could be if he stayed on the path he was on. And I think that through all of this, it taught him how to be more humble. It taught him how to be more kind, because the COO was just an absolute dick. I mean, there was one scene where he shoves a girl into a wall, and it looks like he actually freaking shoved her, hard. And that's something else I have to say about this movie, Train to Busan, is that when they went for it, they went for it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I have to respect Asian culture films for this. Anytime I watch an Asian film, I can guarantee at least A, a little bit of over-dramaticness, or B, well-placed dramaticness, like this situation where he shoves her against the wall. It was well-placed, it was over-dramatic, but it sold it so well. And I felt that brought a light of realism to it. In the times of a zombie apocalypse, are we going to really hold to our moral compass and value of you shouldn't hit or push women? No. If there's a girl that's attacking me, I'm probably going to beat the crap out of her. I'm sorry, but if maybe not beat the crap out of her. That's a bit harsh, but if I'm being attacked by somebody, I may have to let down my moral compass of not hitting a girl to protect, right?
Especially
however, I'm not just going to do it. Now this guy did it just to be a douchebag. She wasn't attacking him. She was just, it was a different situation. Him putting his hands on her wasn't necessary, but the way they did it made it seem really believable and just really, really good. And it made me hate that character more. And that's what I need. That's what I needed to hate that character.
Yeah.
And then him blaming, getting, basically almost getting them kicked off the train by blaming them having the infection. Everything he did was just so shitty. And he was a cockroach. He was a cockroach. He just kept coming back. Every time you would be like, okay, he's gone. Nope, he's back.
Yep. So then let's get into the overall kind of arching story of it and kind of go, maybe not beat by beat, but definitely hit the the moments that we liked and disliked and everything. So we start the movie off. We're following a truck. This is probably, like you were talking about, like this is probably one of my only complaints because it doesn't ever come back up in the movie. So it was kind of pointless. Yeah. So this truck runs over a deer. And so then the truck drives off and it just kind of lingers on the deer for a little bit. All of a sudden the deer kind of it gets back up, and you look at it. Oh no, it's a zombie deer. But then
a deer,
a zeer. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, like I said, this never comes up again. Yep. Other than to foreshadow what is to come, this never gets brought up again. And it's like
you don't ever see another infected animal.
Yep.
Now the only thing that you do get is in that scene. The guy gets stopped at a checkpoint. It's a chemical spray down. They're actually spraying down the vehicle to decontaminate it.
Which is far too real in 2020.
Honestly, it really was a little bit too real in 2020. I actually, I took note of that. But the thing that caught me was the conversation between the guardsman and the truck driver. He goes, "What, you're going to kill my animals again?" So they recently did this where they slaughtered his pigs and burned them because of a contamination from this factory. And he goes, "No, it's not that this time." He goes, "Well, what is it?" And he goes, "We just had some issues with the plant."
Yeah.
So this is an industrial area. This is a medical industrial area, and they're doing something there. This poor farmer has had his animal slaughtered a couple times. He's not happy about it.
Right.
And the way. After he hits the deer, he gets out of his truck, goes to the back, sees it's a deer, and then he goes, "This is a shit day." And then after he says it, he spits. Well, he doesn't spit, but he goes, "Pfft." And it's culturally, Americans don't do this. In American culture, we don't spit after swearing. But in like respectful cultures that have like higher, I don't want to say higher values, but like certain cultures don't believe that swearing is a good thing, like at all. Like in America, it's more common than not.
Fuck you, no, it's not.
Yeah, I know, right? No, we're not Australians. We don't use the C word, but hey, we're getting there. But after he says a swear word, he spits to get the bad taste out of his mouth.
Right,
that's the whole point of that gesture. Is it's to be like, "Oh, I'm having a bad day. I said bad language. I'm going to spit it out and get it out of my mouth." He had his reflection. He did that. It's that I found to be kind of humbling in that whole opening scene. But then I fell right back into the boat with you. I fell right back in. I was on the ledge looking at him like, "Hey, this is kind of cool." And then boom, right back into the boat. Yeah. The deer gets up and I'm like, okay, so we got zombie animals. Cool. Whole movie, never referenced it again. And then we get to the end and the credits roll and I'm like, well, what the fuck happened with the deer in the beginning?
Right.
Why?
Unless it started it all.
I guess, what, did a deer bite somebody?
I guess so.
Is it Lyme disease? Anyways. So,
it was such a weird way to show that we were going to be dealing with zombies.
Yeah, but I feel like out so much. It stuck out too. Oh, I'm starting to yell. It stuck out way too much.
Yeah.
I
think it would have been cooler. Here's my alternate scene. I think it would have been cooler if he hits something, he gets out to go check, and all he sees is this blood stain, and it's going off into the woods. I feel like that would have been better. We would have known, like us as audience, because we know what zombies are, we would have known, oh my God, he hit a zombie. Something like that. I think that might have been a better way of showing it rather than a deer that literally never comes up again. But we're spending a lot of time on a deer that literally has nothing to do with the story, and our main complaint is that it doesn't have enough to do with the story. So let's go on with the story.
Well, I mean, who knows? Peninsula, they may dive into that.
Oh, maybe. Who knows? So then we meet our guy. He's the fund manager. And clearly there's some big merger going on or something. And so he's really stressed out because he's got to be at work to make sure that this thing goes absolutely correct. But it's his daughter's birthday and she wants to go to Busan to see her mother. So he's torn between I need this to go good or I'm going to lose my job. That was kind of the impression I got, especially from his face, like, Jesus, this could go really bad or whatever. And he was and the only thing that convinced him was his mother to finally, okay, fine, I'll take her on the trip or whatever. Mm-hmm. You get a little bit of his relationship with his estranged wife, get a little bit with the mother and everything, and then you kind of get a long way. And then they do that thing which a lot of apocalypse movies do, but I still feel like they pulled it off pretty well, where like stuff's going down clearly, and somehow he's just going on a car ride off to the train station. It's like, how does he not know that the world is ending? Like, you know. So they get on the train. This part really, this is the cinema sins in me, where the guy's looking around, he looks to his left, he looks to his right. When he looks to his right, that girl just zips past him. And so the cinema sins in me is like, he was looking that direction. Did he not see a girl booking it towards him?
I know, right? I know.
But it needed to happen so that the movie could happen, so I'm going to forgive it because it ended up being a really fun ride. Anyways, she's all. So, go ahead.
There was one thing that I'm currently trying to look up when it comes to the protagonist, because he kept getting phone calls from his partner while he was on the train. Mm-hmm. And because you said that he was just so we've been sitting here calling him an accountant and how there was a merger, but once you said the merger, I remembered in the story. When he was talking to his friend goes, "Did we do this? Are we a part of this?"
That's right. That happens later. That happens later. I remember that now.
Now it makes me think, like, yes, he's an accountant for numbers, but I think he's also a part of the whole thing. I just don't know what.
Well, it could be like inside trading, like when somebody knew that, for instance, when somebody knew that the coronavirus was coming and they sold all their marketing in like Amazon or something like that, or something that they knew was going to get hit by the stock market. And so that could explain that line where it's like, is this our fault? Because they told them to sell everything, basically. Yep. So no, you bring up a good point. It wasn't a merger. They were selling everything because something was clearly happening to the higher-ups, and the higher-ups freaking knew it and decided not to do anything about it. Okay. Intrigue. Yep. I totally forgot about that, so thank you for bringing that up.
No. Well, I forgot about it too until you had said that like it was a merger, and I'm like, wait a minute, there was some other involvement that we had with all of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Sorry,
Yeah. No.
I'm gonna keep reading here for a second until I find what his involvement was.
Okay.
I just went to his fandom.
So let's see. Yeah, we're getting on the train. The girl gets on. A guy gets on. The guy's freaking F out. He's like, they're all dead. They're all dead. He left us. The girl starts to turn, and then the infection pretty much starts to spread pretty effing fast. It's almost you brought up a really good comparison, which was World War Z. In World War Z, there's a specific part in the movie where Brad Pitt actually counts, and it takes like 11 seconds for the infection to take over, and then so.
Yep.
And then boom. And there's this one part, tell me if it made you laugh or not, but there's this one part where like there's a bunch of zombies and they like started like piling over each other in the train. This is the very first like scene we see zombies in, and they're
yeah.
It kind of made me laugh. I'm not gonna lie. It was just like it came out of nowhere. Like brrr. Later on, it happens again, but it made way more sense in that particular scene. It was just like it was a weird use of CG because there's like brrr. It's like, whoa, God.
I do know what you mean. I do know what you're talking about, and yeah, it was kind of weird. It shows the intelligence of the zombie, though. That's the one.
Or the stupidity, because they're kind of just bleh.
They're dumb. But the other thing that we didn't know at that time was that they were blind.
Yeah, pretty much blind.
And I think that is a cool trait to a zombie. Mm-hmm. Because my biggest complaint with zombies is, wouldn't the eyes be the first thing to deteriorate?
Right.
Super soft tissue. So here's my answer.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Right at the same time, his daughter goes to the bathroom and he didn't know about it. And so all this is happening. He's like trying to find his daughter. He doesn't know what's happening yet.
Yep.
Until he finally sees what's going on, and like everybody's rushing towards the back or whatever. And here we go, CinemaSins Nick again. All of a sudden, and I'm like, why is nobody shutting a goddamn door? Like they're running, just keep running. It's like there's doors, shut them. Like I feel like they were doing door porn for the first 10 minutes where they would show how they opened and shut a door. I'm like, why is this important? I don't need to know how to open and shut a door. And then sure enough, it's like it became important when nobody was shutting fucking doors. And I'm like, So finally they get to shut a door. And he tries to shut it on the man and his pregnant wife or whatever because he's like, shit.
Yeah.
Which kind of starts the whole head bumping, so to speak, between them two, because he's like, dude, you just tried to leave me to die. Like, fuck you. That's why he keeps calling him jerk man or whatever. And the only reason from what I could tell that he didn't beat the shit out of him was because he realized he had a daughter, like, literally right there.
Yeah. So I can't find anything on his involvement.
I think he was just the fund manager of the company. So he was one of the underlings, so to speak.
But it seemed that he had higher involvement because he could call his friend and schedule military pickup. Because remember, his friend, so when they got to the first station, it says it right here, it's called, because they get to that first station where they go down to meet the military and like, Daejeon mustard, Daejeon. Daejeon. They get to that station, and that's supposed to be the military checkpoint. So everybody else goes through one door except for Young.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
They went to the right, and they go down the stairs, and that's where everybody's dead, and the homeless man went with them. He had more than just insider trading. He had, well, I guess he was on the inside, but it doesn't exactly... it doesn't actually say anywhere in what his full-on involvement was, so that's something I guess left to fan fiction alone.
Yeah, and I mean it very well could just be that because of his position he just knew a lot of people. Doesn't necessarily mean that he knew what was going on, because once again all he cares about is numbers. So he's looking at the numbers, but he might not have been paying attention to where that was coming from. So you bring up a good point. After the whole outbreak happens and they're able to survive or whatever, the next step is, okay, well, we got to pull over somewhere, and so he starts freaking out because they're not going to go to Busan. I was like, well, shit, like, okay. And so, like you said, he gets a hold of his guy to get him the hell out of there. And so they get there and there's zombies, tons and tons of zombies. There was supposed to be military there, but there's not.
You had talked about how fast they turn.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that you and I talked about on a sidebar conversation, and we were talking about how different movies, it takes different time lengths for zombies to turn, depending on where you're bit, how you're bit, if you're dead already, so on and so forth. And in this one, we saw a pretty rapid boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, almost more rabies inspired than straight up like zombies or something.
Yeah, even being bit, instead of like getting a fever and like slowly dying that takes an hour or two, like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, a la Walking Dead,
like, they would be doing something and then they would look at you and like, I'm really tired. And then the moment they would get tired, they would start turning. And it was like instantaneous. And that felt so alive, like so raw. The only other place that I feel that you and I have seen this, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, was on Left 4 Dead. You had found the theory video on YouTube about how it's a flu virus and this, that, and the other, and how I've seen somebody turn in 3 minutes. I've seen somebody turn in a few seconds. Like it's literally on the walls written down. I'm seeing a tie-in to that. So this could be a very flu-like illness.
Yeah.
Where it's almost instantaneous. And to me that was pitched perfectly. And getting into the scene where we go to Daejeon Station, where we see the military and everything, I feel that this is when we got the best view of how fast people turn.
Yes.
So,
And I also like one thing that I noticed about when the zombies were attacking is they weren't attacking for substance. They were attacking to spread the disease.
it was a rage attack.
Yeah, so they would go up to somebody, they would bite them, and then they would move on, which I thought was really interesting. Now, that does sort of fly in the face of a quote-unquote traditional zombie, but at the same time, it is a nice spin on it, because it's like, okay, I'm going to bite you so that I can have more, and then I have a buddy to come with me and bite other people. It was way more about, which also, now that I think of it, brings back the comparison of World War Z zombies, and the fact that they were more worried about getting the disease spread to other carriers than eating necessarily.
Yep.
So, but yeah, very good point. This really shows how fast it can happen and how really on your toes you need to be, because then they try to get out of there and all of a sudden they're piling in over the freaking train. They're trying to get onto the train. The dad gets split up from his daughter. The daughter ends up having to go into a freaking bathroom.
A tiny
bathroom
with an old woman and a pregnant lady.
Yeah. So they're all stuck in there and they're like, crap. I believe they finally do get back on the train. They find out, oh no, we have to make it there. It's like, well, what number are you in? 13. And he's like, and so they look at theirs and like 9. So it's like, we have 4 cars to go. This part of the movie sold the entire fucking movie for me. Dear
I think it was
God.
It was the climactic breakthrough for the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. My God. The whole movie was great up until this point. But it got to this point, and this is the point where, like I said, like, how can they make something, set on a train interesting? This is how. Their preparation for getting, like, the fact that the tough guy, for instance, he just starts wrapping his entire arm up, and you're like, okay. And then,
I told Melissa the same thing before we ever saw him fight a zombie. I told Melissa, I was like, he's not going to use a weapon. She goes, what? I was like, he's not going to use a weapon. She goes, what's he going to use? I was like, his fist.
His fisticuffs.
She goes, well, why would he do that? He's going to get bit. I'm like, I don't know, but that's what he's going to do.
Sure
enough, a few scenes later, I'm like,
pow,
go,
right in the kisser.
Batman.
Pow, right in the kisser. Yeah, but this scene, they're getting ready and everything. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And obviously he gives them a nice pep talk, like, you're in the back, dude. Like, I don't trust you to lead the way.
Again, this is where I was talking about how he treated him.
Yeah.
Kind of opened his eyes to how he should not treat other people, because that's exactly how he was treating other people.
Yeah.
And tough guy, again, there was so much to his character without saying a fucking word. Or even only saying 3 words. It was, I honestly, in my personal opinion, I feel that he could have been the main character.
Yeah,
I feel
definitely.
that we could have swapped him and been perfectly fine.
Yeah. So getting through the 4 carts of zombies was so interesting, and what I loved about it the most is that each cart was different. There was
you learned something new with each cart.
Exactly. Yep. Because, we're going through the first one. The first one's pretty freaking basic or whatever. It's just pow, pow, pow. They get to the second.
When you learn that headshots matter.
Right? They get to the second one, and there's even more of them, and they're like, shit, what are we going to do here or whatever? And then it's getting to the point where, like, oh no, our heroes are going to die, and all of a sudden they go into a tunnel. Yep. And then, so this brings up your point about, like, them being blind or whatever, but they did it in such an interesting way.
Yep.
They could have shown this in hundreds of different ways, but that's the reason, or the way they did it in here was so damn interesting, because it's just like they're sitting there. It's like, I know you're here, but I can't see you anymore.
It's almost like a clicker in a way.
Yeah. Like an early
clicker. Stage
clicker. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it, because they're like, and they're listening for sound. The only thing that I feel that broke that whole scenario of being blind and listening for sound was when you get to the main cart and they had sprayed the window with the fire extinguisher, but they were talking at a normal sound decibel.
True.
Here's why. That's one thing that bugged me. I wouldn't say enough to where it ruined the movie, because it obviously didn't.
Yeah, right.
But it was one of those ones where it's like, that's a loophole right there. Like, you're talking loud, but you sprayed the window. They're blind and they go off sound.
Yeah, true. Very true.
So at that point, I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. But the rest of the way through it still lined up perfectly. And like you said, to see them go into the first tunnel, the lights go out, and they're just like, well, shit. They're not attacking. What do we do?
Yeah.
Really eye opener.
Yeah.
Really big eye opener.
Yeah. And then the next train was I believe was the baseball players. Mm-hmm. So it's like each cart or car, whatever you want to call it, was like a new challenge. And to see him freeze up like that, it's like you definitely felt for the kid, because it's like he already had to see like two of his friends die, like literally in front of his face, and then change right in front of his face.
Now his whole team was turned.
Yeah, and the whole reason he's on this quest to begin with is to go see his... Well, I mean, I guess you don't know if they're girlfriend or boyfriend, but they're definitely close friends.
She early on in the movie, she wanted to be his girlfriend, and he kept turning her down.
Oh, he a player.
Actually, his friends were making fun of him for it a little bit.
Oh.
And I'm not really sure why. I think it was just kind of a cute, little cachet grab type thing. But, they weren't quite boyfriend and girlfriend, and he kept turning her down, and that's why he wanted to get back to her, because he felt bad. He felt that he made a mistake.
Yeah.
He wanted to show her that he loved her.
Yeah.
And it was very romantic.
Yes. So, yeah, they finally get there, and once again they're playing with the light system, because it's like, okay, now we have to get to the next train, because that's where the other survivors are. But how do we get there? He uses his GPS.
That's when the numbers game come back to help him. Yep,
because he's all like, okay, based on this, we should have 2 minutes of darkness. And so they use like the overhead carrying thingamajigger, where Harry Potter's hid.
Stores his luggage.
And they went up there as everything, and like this whole thing, I think, I'll keep saying it because it's true, but it's like the fact that each cart was different made each cart so interesting, because they had to really figure out new ways of doing stuff. They had to find out new ways, and every time there was this kink in the road, they had to figure out how to get that kink fixed or whatever.
Yep. And in most stories, when you go through an area and then the actors or actresses have to go back through it, it's like easy peasy for them, because they're like, oh, we just cleared the area. Here's where they did it.
Yeah.
And they made it just as interesting going back through as they did going through it the first time.
Yeah.
And
because the interesting thing is that, they were beating the crap out of them, but I don't necessarily think they were killing all of them. So it was more about getting past them. And so it was really a scenario where it's like, well, we could try to make our way back through there, but why should we win one cart further and we can get to the girl or whatever? And so, that whole politics that we're playing in that cart, and they were tying up the door, and of course the jackass COO is being a jackass.
God, I hate that character.
So, I mean, a bunch of drama happens there, and then eventually they do get to Busan, and I guess it wasn't Busan. They needed to make a transfer to a different train because the train tracks were all effered up.
There was a train accident.
Yeah. So that one was also a really cool scene, because it's like, okay, we there was a time restraint, like, okay, we got to get to another train because he's going to leave without us if we don't get there in time. Yep. So even though we got outside of a train, it was still really freaking interesting, and it was it was still like low budget. Like I think you brought this up before. It was low budget because it was in a train, so it's like they didn't have to spend as much money on like locations or whatever. But it's like they really used it to their advantage or whatever.
They did, and then you have the whole the train accident scene where there's a mass pileup. The train's flipped over. You have zombies in the train cars pushing down on the windows.
Yeah, trying to get to them. Oh, that was so tense.
Causing the train to tilt and tilt and tilt. And right when you think everybody's about to get smashed, you have a complete pull through. And then you have the mad dash. And I call this the mad dash for the moving engine. There's a train that's moving towards Busan. There's no carts. It's just the engine. It's the protagonist, the pregnant lady, the daughter, and they're making it for the train. The COO and the conductor of the train were together, and they both got attacked. And the only one that made it out of it was the COO.
Yeah.
So then you get to the engine. Everybody gets on the engine. The pregnant lady, the protagonist, his daughter, and the COO. And here's where we get our biggest redemption of the whole movie. This is a climactic end to it. The COO is finally infected.
Yes. So we have a moment where we're like, haha, you got it, bastard. And then we're like, oh, shit.
He got it. But what I didn't like was how long it took for him to get it. I didn't like how easily he got it. Like, I wanted him to be ripped to shreds. And he didn't quite get what I wanted, but he still was turned. Here's where we got to see the World War Z zombies come into play. They end up getting him off the train, and now it's just a pregnant lady, the kid, and the dad. And there's a horde of zombies, and I call it a horde. It's like 45 deep, but that's still a horde. They're coming towards the train, and one reaches out and latches onto the train, and he's holding on for dear fucking life.
Right.
Being drugged through train tracks and rocks, and then another zombie and another zombie and another zombie and another zombie and another zombie, and they create a net behind the train so heavy that you can actually
it's a skirt.
You could see sparks coming off the wheels of the trains because they're actually slowing it down.
Yeah,
and that was a cool effect. Crazy. I wish they had more money because I wanted to see what the zombies looked like at the bottom of that
under
pile.
them. Yeah,
it's all ripped apart, but you had the World War Z aspect because they made a skirt. They made a net of zombies that they were climbing up to get onto the train. So by that aspect, it was really, 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 really good.
Yeah. Now, I guess the one thing we did, because we were trying to go through this story, we did kind of gloss over the fact that the tough guy...
Don't talk about it. That's, you know what? We're going to leave that to the fans to go watch. You want to know what happens to the tough guy? Go watch it.
Well, no. I mean, this whole thing is a discussion about the whole movie.
I don't want to talk about
the tough guy dies. I know. The tough guy dies, but that whole scene was also really good because basically they were trying to get into the cart that we were talking about where the girl was, and they didn't want to let him in. So they're trying to get into him. Meanwhile, he has to hold the door shut because some of the zombies wedge themselves so that they can't shut it. So he's sitting there trying to hold it, and he's like, "Get out of here, man! Get out of here!" And I think, and then right around then, he also gets bit.
Right on the hand.
Yeah. Boom. Gets bit. Like that moment was just like, oh man, because just like we wanted the COO to die, we also didn't want him to die. Which goes back to the characterizations and how good they were. Because it's like, we didn't want him to die, which automatically meant that he needed to die. Like, we should have known that.
No, I think we did.
We didn't want it.
Here's what I liked about his death, though. Here's what I really liked about it. As he was, I'm getting tired, man. You got to go. And, his eyes turned. He closed his eyes, and he shook his head, and then he reopened them. And he wasn't a zombie yet. He was still human. Even though he was blinded and the illness was taking over, you could literally watch he was so mentally, emotionally strong that he was able to fight it off for just a little bit longer. And you saw that. Yeah. And I thought that was the best play because, one, it gives us hope that there is a cure.
Yeah.
One, there is possibly a cure. Two, it just made him look even more like a badass.
Right, yeah.
He's
All
such a cool character.
All right, so then fast forward backward, that I didn't want to skip over that, and I totally, Anyway, so it turns out that in fighting the COO, the dad got bit.
Yeah.
And that scene where he's basically like locking his daughter in the engine room, like, oh, like as a double daughter daddy, like, ooh, that got me good. Because then he goes out to the back of the car and he's like gonna throw himself off because you can see that he's starting to turn. And what's he thinking about that moment he sees his daughter for the first time? And I'm just like, feels, so many feels.
Yeah, no, they hit that hard. It was super emotional, super powerful. And him having the flashbacks of all the things that he did, but it didn't just flash back on the good things he did.
Yeah.
It flashed on some of the bad things he did too. And that kind of was an eye opener to, I think, as the audience, like, don't take your time for granted.
Yeah, right.
Spend it appropriately. And I think that was a huge message behind that character development.
Yeah.
One thing that we glossed over too was, why did they get on the train? Why were they going to Busan to see her mom? Because it was the little girl's birthday.
No, I said that.
The dad actually saw a home video that his mom took of his daughter at the school recital, which he was too busy. He was at work. She was singing a song and she didn't finish it because of stage fright. Mm-hmm. He felt so bad about not being there for her that's why he gave in to take her on the train.
Yeah.
He didn't give in because it was her birthday. He gave in because he realized, I'm being a really shitty dad.
True.
And I think that was like the first true eye-opener to what he was doing, and maybe possibly realized it, but he was still a little too good to admit it. Whereas right back at the end, fast forward all the way to the end, that's when you really see that, like, he gets it now.
Yeah.
And it's one of those sad moments where it's like, day late, dollar short, guy.
Yeah, right. So now it's only the girl and the pregnant lady, and they basically get to this big tunnel, but they can't go any further. They have to hoof it.
Stop the. Yep.
And so then the people are telling him to kill him because they can't confirm if they're infected or not. I'm like, no. Yep. And she starts singing, and it's like, more feels.
She sings a song that she had stage fright. And the reason is because her dad said, her dad goes, why didn't you ever finish the song? And he goes, always finish the song. So she did. She finished it at the end of the movie. Very, very powerful. Mm-hmm. I was really worried that they were just going to shoot them. I thought we were totally going to have a Night of the Living Dead scenario.
Yeah, right?
Which I was like, okay, I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
But I do like how they had the turnaround. I do like how she sang her song, and it in turn saved their lives by her singing it. So I thought that was a really good end to the movie. I thought that played out well.
Yeah, so definitely, like, I'm so glad we were able to see this. This is one of the best, definitely top 5, like you were saying, zombie movies of all time, The only ones that are above this are ones that, like, I have, like, a personal attachment to. And I would even argue that maybe this one, as far as a technical standpoint, as far as a acting standpoint, as far as a cinematography standpoint, this one actually beats all the other ones.
I've been struggling for days with this being possibly my number one favorite zombie movie.
Right.
And I'm talking like, you have some really good ones in my top 5, and this one came out of nowhere, left field, and just hit home. Dawn of the Dead is probably my number one favorite zombie movie. I think this definitely beats Dawn of the Dead.
Original or remake?
Possibly remake.
Yeah. I like Zack Snyder's thing.
Because the original was good. No, I love Zack Snyder. There's nothing wrong with Zack Snyder. Right? So the original is in my top 5 as well. Mm-hmm. But that's because I feel that Dawn of the Dead, the original, was a better movie than Night of the Living Dead. And even George A. Romero agrees that, he did a better job with it. And that's because he had time to kind of cook it a little bit better. He had more money. Mm-hmm. Dawn of the Dead, the original, was actually incredibly good for its time, which it's actually more known than its predecessor, Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
More
true.
people have watched Dawn of the Dead than they have watched Night of the Living Dead. And that's because of how well it was.
Mhm.
I would put the original Dawn of the Dead in probably 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
Like, it's right on the tail end of my zombie movie loves. And that's not including TV series or video games. This is just movies alone. So that would fall in like 4th or 5th. This movie is easily 2nd or 1st. Train to Busan is easily 2nd or 1st. This kind of flipped my scale.
So what movie is either 1st or 2nd? What's that one that it's almost tying with?
Dawn.
Dawn? So
Exactly.
remake Dawn? Okay.
Yep.
Mine is Land of the Dead. George A. Romero's return to zombies. And also
wrong with Land. Nothing wrong with Land.
Yeah. Also his return to his kind of Day of the Dead storyline, where in Day of the Dead they started becoming more smart. And
started human again.
Yeah, and so this one kind of took that and ran with it. Also, I feel like there's very few movies that show us a zombie apocalypse years after it's happened. Almost all movies are the day of. So, or not the day of, but the week of, this one happens, I want to say 7 or 8 years after. There's a civilization, there's raiding parties, and that's one of the reasons it's I think my number one, but I'm the same with you. It's my number one for like personal reasons.
It's now my number 3. It used to be
your number 2? Yeah.
It used to go Dawn of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
And now
Shaun's way up there.
All three of those have just went boop, boop, and they shuffled over. And the reason is because I didn't expect Train to Busan to be so good.
And I think it's good not just because it's a zombie movie. Land of the Dead is a good zombie movie. But in a lot of ways, you could say it's like, oh, maybe the cinematography isn't that great. Maybe the writing isn't that great, yada, yada, yada. Yep. Whereas this, I feel like everything. And if you need any more proof, we can go down to its accolades. Asian Film Festival, March 21st, 2017, nominated. No wins, unfortunately, but nominated for Best Actor, Gong Yoo. Yep. Best Supporting Actor, Mon Dong-sik, which is the tough guy. Yeah, totally agree on that. Why he didn't win it? Because they're idiots. Best Editor, Best Visual Effects, totally agree. Best Costume Designer. Then there's the Blue Dragon Film Awards, 25th of November, 2016. I apparently refreshed or whatever. Okay.
So I went ahead and did it.
I refreshed it by date of ceremony. For some reason, it was alphabetical again.
So the Buell Film Awards, 7th of October 2016, they won Best Supporting Actor. That's Kim I-soon.
Oh, man, it was Kim? Why wasn't the other girl?
Which is the COO. I hate that. The Buell Film
Awards.
That's
the COO. Why the fuck did he get it?
I don't know. Buell Film Awards in 2016. Also, they got Film Arts Award. They got a technical award that they won, but they were nominated for Best Film. They were nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Best Cinematography.
Yeah, best film in the Blue Dragon, Asian Film, Big Arts Award, and
technical awards.
Oh wait, sorry. Where is it? Chunsun Film Awards.
Yep.
So, a bunch of nominations. Unfortunately, here's what it's won for. Let's get to that. So, Buell Films was the Best Supporting Actor. This is almost when
Film Arts Award.
When this is almost when let's see, Christopher Waltz won Best Supporting Actress or Actor over Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like, come on, Lee. It was Leo.
Yeah.
He's freaking robbed. Anyways.
No, I agree.
And then so they won for Film Arts Award, and they won for Technical Award down all the way down here. More Technical Award, Audience Choice Award for Most Popular. So there we go.
Yep.
They
won in 2017 Best Supporting Actor. It was Kim again.
God damn it! Why? He's not even that good of an actor.
Best New Director. So I agree with that.
There you go. Nice.
They won another technical award. They won a special audience award for best film, which is
There you go.
incredible. And then the one I think you and I both agree on, it doesn't have a date, but they won for the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards,
Nice.
best foreign language film.
Fuck
I
yeah.
100% agree that this is the best foreign language film that I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely. So our point in bringing that up isn't to like go, hee, South Korea's better, but rather that zombie films have always kind of been a niche. It's always been
cliche.
What?
It's always been an Americanized cliche.
Well, yeah, maybe, but what I mean no more is just it's a niche. It's a subgenre of horror. And how many horror movies get accolades? Not many of them, unless it's a very like the Chainsaw Award. That's clearly a horror specific award. You know what I mean? Yep. So unless it's a horror specific award, horror movies don't typically get any kind of accolades as far as like being considered like good films in the eyes of like Golden Globes and stuff like that. So my point isn't to be like haha, but rather that zombie movies have always been a niche, have always been maybe not independent, but definitely not like a AAA movie, maybe like a AA movie, if you know what I'm talking about. So this movie winning and being nominated, because it is an honor just to be nominated, but this movie getting so many nominations, so many wins, like what other zombie movie can say that? Not a lot. You know, I'm not saying there's zero. I'm just saying that how many have this many accolades. So, great MFN movie. So, without looking, hopefully you haven't looked yet. If you had to guess what its Rotten Tomatoes is, what would you say it's at?
Oh, in the highs, in the 70s, 80s. Really?
You're completely wrong, but in a good way because it's 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
No way.
Yep. I have faith in humanity that this is a 94. Because if it would have been in the 80s, I would have been like, "Fuck you! It deserves more." 7.
I agree. I think it deserves more, but knowing how Rotten Tomatoes is, I was only going to put it at 80s.
Right? You were trying to be considerate. Nope. This deserves more. It does have a 7.6 in IMDb, so fuck them, and a 72% in Metacritic. So I don't know what the heck's that. I want to see what the audience score is. So I'm going to click on Rotten Tomatoes. See, now the audience score is what makes it go down to 88. So you were right if you were going to be talking about the audience score. But I wonder how much of those scores are because of whiny little bitches because you have to read.
Honestly, yeah, actually. I actually agree with that just because, I mean, I'm pretty skeptical on movies. It takes a lot. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for me to be deterred. If you can't keep my entertainment for that long, then I'm not entertained and I will walk away. This movie had me glued to my seat.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Like, I didn't want to take no potty break. I didn't want to go get popcorn. I wanted to sit down and watch this movie because it was that good.
Yeah. Such a good movie. So, obviously, hopefully you've seen it by now because you're listening to this podcast. But we want
if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's
right. But we want to hear from you guys. What did you think about the movie? What was your favorite part? Your least favorite part? You know what? We actually should say that. What was your favorite part of the movie? Before we go.
Probably when they go down the escalator and see all the military people as zombies.
Yeah, that was a good shot because just like something was coming, but you're like, what's gonna happen? You're like, oh my god. Yeah.
Everybody's turned, but then it led to a fantastic chase scene.
Yes,
and
definitely.
I thought that chase scene was super good.
So mine would have to be it's a toss up because the whole going up the 4 carts and the tunnels in particular I absolutely love, but I do have to say what barely beats it is the part of the train wreck where the zombies are like in the glass and like, on top of them and trying to push through whatever, because that part was just especially at the end where the one guy stays behind and then they just like tidal wave on top of them. It's like, oh, that's fucked up. So
Yeah.
least favorite part. I believe you said something about the girl, right? The girl and her cry or something.
Oh no, I just said I preferred it without her crying. I didn't like her crying.
Okay. So what's your least favorite part?
It would be how the COO got turned.
Yeah. Okay. My least favorite part would go back to the deer and just how it would have. There's 100 different ways they could have done that scene better to still let the audience know that, oh, something wrong is going on. But having a deer that is never ever addressed again was just kind of, you know, there's plenty that are silly about the movie, but it's just kind of like horror movies like you kind of expected or whatever. So
Right.
So yeah,
It was very cabin feverish.
yeah. So next up, next week, or next, I guess not next week because we're not doing this for next week, but next time we're going to be doing an episode, you will be getting it. Let me see here. On the 22nd. So by then, the new Black Ops Cold War is going to be coming out, and we're going to be talking about zombies, Black Ops zombies. Not just specifically the newest one, but more in particular just the zombies genre in Call of Duty, and what we like about it, what we don't like about it, favorite map, least favorite, you know, things like that. We're going to be going into it there. So check out that if you want on our next episode on November 22nd. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another ZOMBcast. It's been super fun so far. Having a lot of fun with it with my buddy Kevin. So I was Nick.
I am me.
Steve. I
I'm
want
not
to say.
Steve. I'm not Steve. I'm
No?
not Steve. I'm
No,
Kevin.
Oh, Kevin. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure to what's
Click the like button.
Yeah, click that too. I mean, you can go down below. No, what's it? Make sure to give him that double tap, or give him the double tap and
Check your corners.
check your corners, and always make sure to give him the double tap. That's how it goes. All right. Yep. Perfect outro as per usual.